Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
And I meant every word of those introductory remarks. I have the greatest deal of respect for you personally and professionally. This is a great pick by President Trump. You're going to do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do want to say, though, that it appears as though Trump derangement syndrome is alive and well. The focus of these questions today are disturbing. I don't think my Democrat colleagues learned very much from the November 5th election. The American people rejected all this. Their obsession with President Trump didn't bode well for them electorally, and I think if they stay on this path, they'll be in a permanent minority. But that's up to
112 electoral votes, Senator.
the landslide. But that's up for them. That's up to them to decide. I do want to comment a little bit, I guess, on this newfound religion on independence from the Attorney General. I will remind my colleagues that the last three Democratic attorneys general for the United States of America were perhaps the most biased, politically biased AGs we've had in modern political history in the United States. And there are some receipts. Eric Holder described himself as Obama's heat shield and wingman. This committee moved forward, and one of my colleagues referenced that the Attorney General shouldn't be the wingman of the President. Eric Holder's bragged about it. He bragged about it. Loretta Lynch met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac in a private meeting while she was investigating Hillary Clinton. And Merrick Garland probably gets however many gold stars you want to give for the most politicized, weaponized Department of Justice we have ever seen. And I think it's worth exploring that, and then I want to get your comment on it. To just sort of take a step back, I think part of leadership is understanding the moment that you're in and the landscape. We've never seen anything like this. And there is a story to be told. The arc of this story begins when Joe Biden gave a speech demonizing half the country, calling them threats to the republic, threats to democracy, these MAGA Republicans, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure President Trump ever gets back into the White House. Miraculously, these zombie cases are resurrected. And let's talk about a couple of those. You've got, of course, Jack Smith, the overzealous and disgraced special prosecutor who time and time again has been slapped down by courts for overcharging and taking an overtly political position. He, by the way, in his postmortem this week, even acknowledged that it was unusual for him to be tasked with going after the political opponent of the President of the United States. It didn't stop him, though. The Supreme Court did, thankfully. But you had Jack Smith take on these unprecedented actions. You had a raid at Mar-a-Lago, staged photos at Mar-a-Lago for boxes of documents, which, by the way, boxes of documents were in Joe Biden's garage from his Senate days. And by the way, somebody who didn't register like you did under FARA, Hunter Biden was staying in. We don't know if he's compromised or not because that investigation was dropped. And give me a break that justice was meted out fairly for Hunter Biden. It wasn't. The Department of Justice went out of its way in documents to try to get him absolved of all potential crimes in the plea deal. It was only when the judge asked questions that unwound that. And they got back to the gun charge, but then President Biden did the dirty work himself. It was always going to be Plan B. You had Jonathan Su, Biden's deputy White House counsel, coordinated with the DOJ and Jay Bratt on those classified document cases. Matthew Colangelo, who's that? The number 3 guy at DOJ goes to where? Alvin Bragg's office. Alvin Bragg then resurrects a zombie case in lawfare at a local level. Why would the number 3 person go do that? Maybe there was coordination. Maybe there was coordination, by the way, with the number 2 assistant DA in Atlanta in the Fani Willis case, who was meeting with the White House. Why would the White House care about a case in Atlanta? Well, the truth is everybody knows, it was on full display, this was the worst case of lawfare we've ever seen. If this was happening in another country, our State Department would be warning us about it. It's banana republic stuff. And one of the reasons why I'm so glad that you have been put up and nominated for this position is that I think you have the ability to level set. So when the Democrats ask you questions about your independence, it is beyond ironic that we're sitting here today because of the lack of independence from Merrick Garland and Eric Holder bragging about being Obama's wingman. So I just want to ask you, you've been asked this a bunch of times, you're going to make decisions, as you always have, right, on the law and let investigations go where they're going to go, but they're not politically motivated, correct?
Yes, Senator, based on the law and the facts that apply.
And in my limited time, I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about some of your experience working with law enforcement as Florida's Attorney General. This is something that, you know, as you and I talked about over the years, you were known for this, the collaboration you had. And I think getting the Department of Justice back to its core function of taking on violent crime, protecting the constitutional rights of Americans, but taking on violent crime is really important. And how you went about doing it, you've gotten bipartisan praise for that over the years. You've got the support of all these law enforcement agencies. That's something that you're going to continue and take forward into this office. Is that right?
Yes, Senator, thank you so much. And I feel like my experience with that goes back to when I was a state prosecutor with state and local, our sheriffs, our police departments, our police chiefs, and then as Attorney General on a statewide basis. And now, if I'm confirmed, all of our federal law enforcement agencies, I would be very proud to supervise those.
I'll just close with this, Mr. Chairman. We heard one of my Democrat colleagues ask you the question that you're not going to pursue a case because of a name, but because of the crime. I would argue that the current Department of Justice adopted Lenin's claim, which was, show me the man and I'll show you the crime. And they did everything they could to throw President Trump in jail for the rest of his life because they didn't want to lose the ballot box. That is not what this country is about. That is not what this republic is about. But they did it. And it's up to you now to restore the integrity and I have of that agency, of the Department of Justice, and I have full confidence that you will.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.